We have with us Dr. Kalpana Narendran, who's going to dwell on surgical management of ectopia lentis. On to you, Dr. Kalpana.
Thank you, Dr. Chitra and the team ARC for giving me this opportunity. So I'll be talking about a special situation, ectopia lentis. Though as we don't see, it's not a very common condition that we see in a day-to-day practice. But then we do come across these type of lenses, children who come to us. So what exactly is ectopia lentis? Is the displacement of the lens away from its position. So it could be either a subluxation or a dislocation. This particular patient here, if you see, there is a subluxation, and I don't know if you can appreciate, you can see the zonules, intact zonules, which attaches the equator of the lens to the ciliary process, and the lens is still in the visual axis. Whereas a dislocation usually occurs after a trauma where the lens is completely displaced with disruption of the zonules. And etiology, there are varied etiologies. Some of these kids who can just present with congenital ectopia lentis where there is subluxation of the lens. And, sometimes it can be just a pure subluxation, usually it is symmetrical and bilateral, but it can also present another unique condition called ectopia lentis et pupillae, where there is the dragging of the pupil to one side and the lens to the other side, which is very rare, but we still have seen patients who have resistance to dilatation, and then there is also some translumination defects in the iris with atrophy. The most common cause of ectopia lentis, which we normally see, is the metabolic causes or the Marfan syndrome, rather. Dr. Akila has already talked more about the Marfan syndrome. And almost 60 to 70% of the patients presenting with ectopia lentis usually Marfan syndrome. So you can see these different forms of subluxation. This is a traumatic subluxation with a cataractous lens. And this is subluxation where you can see it bisects the pupil. So I'm showing all these pictures because based on the presentation, your treatment modality will change. And trauma also is a major cause of subluxation, both in adults and in children. So I'm going to start, presenting this boy to you. You presented to us last week. And this boy is an 11-year-old boy who reviewed with us last week with a defective vision, both eyes. His uncorrected visual acuity was 5/60, and which was improving to 6/24 with the spectacles. And on slit lamp evaluation, he had a nasal subluxation of both his clear lenses, which was involving the pupillary area. His intraocular pressure was normal, and the fundus was normal. And this boy was with us since 2018, but then lost for follow-up. And review as old records, we saw that the slit lamp evaluation had shown mild subluxation of the clear lens in both eyes, and the pupillary area it remained faking. And this was his refraction and the glasses which we had given. So he was improving to 6/12, and he was about 8 years old. And we said, we will give you the glasses and, we'll follow him up. And he was continuing to wear the glasses. And this is the boy here. You can see this subluxation. And why I am showing you this is in very young children, sometimes if there is a problem in fixation or if there is a sensory deviation, mainly because of anisometropia or untreated refractive error, usually myopic. So that's why I'm showing this picture of fixation. So one should be very careful in following up these children. And this is what he presented now. So when I saw him, he was dilated, and this was the value. With +12, he was improving to 6/9. But this boy, I've asked him to come for follow-up on Saturday because I want to see an undilated pupil. If if the lens is bisecting the pupil and his visual axis is not clear, then we would have to advise him for surgery because he is in 9th grade now attending online classes. Or if he is comfortable with this +12 and 6/9 improvement, we can still give him an elective time for surgery. He can always plan his surgery during his vacation. So when you talk about managing these kids with ectopia lentis, surgically it's very challenging because it needs a very customized approach based on the presentation. And also importantly, that the systemic workup has to be done because most of these syndromes have an underlying systemic involvement or other ocular associations. So it's very important to do a thorough preoperative workup. So visual acuity evaluation mainly to decide on what type of management you're going to do with. And the age of the child also is a very important factor. So based on the age of the child, the presentation, you decide whether you're going to do conservative in terms of medical management, and also then or surgical management. This medical management sometimes would give one time for the parents. Second is in a very young child where you cannot place intraocular lens. Suppose you see a child, a 1-year-old child, where you can't place a lens. If there's a chance for a medical management, then you can think about it. Refraction, mostly it is myopic, so you should always do a retinoscopy and look at the refractive status of the child. And if there's any underlying amblyopia, it's better to treat the amblyopia and to counsel the parents regarding the follow-up and the need for glasses. And intraocular pressure, secondary glaucomas can also be associated with this. Fundus evaluation, very importantly, because especially Marfan syndrome, they tend to have myopic changes and breaks in the retina, so very important. And axial length measurement is very important. And then sometimes cornea plana can be one associated factor, ocular feature in these children. So keratometry also is very important. Then ocular examination before you proceed, for surgery or the line of management, always assess the amount and the direction of subluxation. So whether it is a minimal subluxation, how many clock hours involvement of zonular weakness, and then if there is a gross subluxation, what is your plan, all that. So it's very important to have an ocular examination. And and the systemic workup. So I'm not going to the details of this because Dr. Akhila has already mentioned. So, and in the present scenario, it is always better to, do a thorough systemic workup for all the kids who undergo general anesthesia, and more so when you have a special situation like an ectopia lentis. So the management protocol based on the position of the lens, if it's a mild subluxation, you can treat them with spectacle correction, and mydriatics also can be tried for a short time. I do not have a personal experience on mydriatics, and also there have been reports where people have tried optical iridectomy to open up the visual axis to delay the surgery in very small children. And in case of marked subluxation, surgery is the only option. And in surgery, when you do plan for a lensectomy, it could be either anterior approach or a pars plana. But an anterior limbal approach is more easier because in very young children, the pars plana is not very well developed anatomically. And looking at the surgical options, there are various options based on the position of the lens and the age of the child. Lensectomy would be one option. The other option would be an intraocular lens placement with the capsule tension ring or the segments, which are very popular now. And Cioni with the IOL is also a good option for these children, though technically it's a little bit more challenging and the learning curve is is longer. And iris fixated IOLs and iris claw, these artisan lenses do have a role in these kids who have had a lensectomy. And in little older children, sterile fixated IOL is a good option for these kids. I'll show some surgical videos. So if you see here, this gross subluxation, you can see here. So I'm making a clear corneal incision. I think I would just take a minute here. If you see here, these kids, very difficult. When I made my side port entry, I also punctured the anterior capsule. Because with the cystitome, it might be very difficult because the capsule is very tough. And because the zonules are not, in position, it might be very difficult. Here, I'm using the spatula and then holding the lens, doing the aspiration. So remove the cortex. So it can be very easily done in the limbal approach. So vitrectomy done, and then a peripheral iridotomy was done, and then the wound is closed. And this, my second video, if you see here, again, there is gross subluxation. Here, we're using capsule tension rings to stretch the bag. It makes it a little more easier. You can see the rex's size. And you can use your irrigation aspiration cannula to clean the cortical matter. And once it is done, she's trying to enlarge the rexes. This was actually Dr. Sandra's video, which I'm showing here now. And then anterior vitrectomy is done. And this patient, we try to keep the rim So later on, if at all you want to plan a secondary IOL implantation, if you have like, some part of the rim, you can plan for iris fixation. And this is a patient where there is not much of a subluxation.
1 minute left.
I had 15 minutes. I thought, okay, I'll try to push off. So this is the video. I'm not going to show because it's routine. And this one, if you see here, you can see the subluxation, gross subluxation. So, you do the aspiration, and I might need another 2 or 3 minutes.
Oh, no, Kalpana, you and Dr. Ramesh had 15 minutes. Mr.
My
Sunil is
apologies.
not
I
here.
wrongly
Yeah,
sorry.
yeah.
Okay,
Go
okay,
ahead.
thank you. So, so we put the CTR. So what we did differently here was, because we were able to, keep the capsule, I did a iris fixation. I do this technique where, there is a compromise, at least if there is, at least 270 degrees support of the posterior capsule, this would be a good option, where you place a 3-piece lens in the sulcus and suture it to the iris with the 90 Prolene suture at 3 o'clock position, or a temporal, iris, so that it gets fixed and the lens is in position. Then you do a posterior capsulotomy to clear the visual axis and close the wound. Then traumatic cataract, of course, there are you can see here, you can see in this patient there is a subluxation, and there's also a posterior plaque like what Dr. Ramesh showed. So the procedure is the same. Only thing is you have to be very cautious while you're doing the rhexis, especially in the area of the subluxation. So you do a thorough cortical cleanup. You put the lens. You can see the posterior plaque here. The one thing different in this case is, most of the cases, like Ramesh said, you can just peel it off. But this particular patient, if you can see, it's a little eccentric. It's not only in the center. So I tried peeling it. This is enlarging the rhexis, but then I could not really peel it off. See, I'm trying. It would not really come very easily. So I had to use the vitrector and cut it, because I had to retain the part of the rim. So that is why, this is different. And this is another case of traumatic cataract, where you're trying to place a CTR. One point about traumatic cataract subluxation, unlike the other, the disorders, these, this subluxation do not progress. They usually, remain the same. So you don't have to worry about, these decentration of the lens and all that in a traumatic cataract. So this is spirophakia. We all know it's, I think I'll show this video first. It's a unique condition, where you can see this, the anterior posterior diameter is long and the equatorial diameter of the lens is small. It can be associated with the Weil-Marcesani syndrome. And, the caution should be that sometimes it can anteriorly get subluxated. It can cause a pupillary block glaucoma, and it can cause corneal decompensation, or sometimes even trivial trauma. We have seen patients where the whole lens is in the anterior chamber. So these kids, if you see them and if the lens is clear, you can always, if there's no other impending problem, you just do iridotomy and then follow them up. So this particular patient, we put a CTR, and then we did a posterior capsulotomy and retained the capsule. Later on, we can plan for a intraocular lens. So this is a little older child where it's a case of spirophakia. So this is a little older. So I did not even use a dye. You can see the the golden ring, and we're using the iris hooks to stretch the bag. You can see the intact zonules very clearly here. And, I'm doing, this is a little hard. So I'm using the phaco with the epinuclear mode to aspirate. And you're trying to put the CTR and place an intraocular lens. So especially in a child, when you put a CTR, you have to be very careful, because the bag gets stretched. So sometimes when you attempt to do a posterior capsulotomy after that, you have to be very cautious. So, sometimes even with a posterior capsulotomy, vitrector is better than a manual, because once you make a nick, if the bag is stretched, especially in spirophakia, where you have a smaller lens, it's easy to lose the capsule. So I'm actually relaxing the iris hooks and then extending the rhexis. Because if you have a taut, rhexis margin, it's easy for a runaway rhexis for want of time. So the next thing is the Sione's ring. This was popular by Robert Sione. He modified the capsule tension ring And it's a good technique, and only thing is it's time consuming. And also, like I mentioned, the learning curve is little longer, and one should be technically sound to handle such cases. But it does have good results. If you have done some cases and if you have confidence, definitely is a good option for treating these kids with ectopia lentis. So you can see here, you use high-risk hooks, you remove the cortex. I think I'll probably push a little bit. I don't want to show you all this. So this is an option, of having a thing. Only thing is when you tie it in the 90 proline suture, you should always pull it a little bit further down, because with time and fibrosis, sometimes there is a chance that it can get decentered. So that's very important. So the challenges would be sometimes, surgically, these pupils do not dilate. And then in the back placement of IOL, technical difficulty, follow-up, because these kids can sometimes present with optic capture, decentration, glaucoma, or other retinal problems. So follow-up and the change in refractive status, all this have to be addressed, and also the underlying systemic association. So it's very important to follow these children and do what is needed for these children, and have a customized approach to these kids. Thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you very much, Dr. Kalpana. You tried to cover a lot, and a lot of information came through. Can you stop sharing your screen? Yeah. So I just have a question. So talking about an adult subluxation with the CTR and CTS and all makes sense. But here there's a challenge of visual axis opacification. You do all those intrinsic things, and then you have to end up with a thought of what you're going to do about the capsule. Again, I do understand that doing all this, you're trying to protect the posterior segment from getting involved, but I think it is going to get involved. So very honest opinion of Dr. Kalpana and Dr. Sujata Guha, before she decides to disconnect, I want you in. I want to know that does it make sense to do only a lensectomy? And what would be a choice of iris fixated or iris clip or a glued or a SFIOL?
No, if it's an older child, I think an SFIOL would be an option. Maybe a child above the age of 12 or 13. But a younger child, iris claw, I have done in adults, but not in children. Because there's a lot of iridodonosis also in these children. So I do not know, how well they would, react in these kids in a long-term process. But the option would be to leave them aphakic. A lensectomy, if it's a gross subluxation, the lensectomy would be the best option. Later on, when the child is older, we can always plan for a secondary scleral fixated IOL. That's my choice. Dr. Sujata?
I think I completely agree. No pediatric ophthalmologist would like to mess about with a Cioni or a CTR and in the pars plana region. It is always better to have a good aphakia. There is always a chance of a secondary sclerally fixated, either glued or sutured lens later on. But the younger the child, the more prone we are to keeping the child aphakic with a good aphakia.
Good. Ram sir, would you want to add something, or Ramesh?
Yeah, if it is a gross subluxation, then I think this lensectomy, anterior vitrectomy is the first choice. But suppose it is 120 degree or even up to 180 degree, then we place a single eyelet or two eyelet Cioni ring or two segment, that is MS segment or any other segment for stabilization of the capsular bag. But very small children, when lensectomy and anterior vitrectomy is done, transscleral fixation of IOL or sutureless IOL, we don't do less than 4 years.
Dr. Ramesh?
I would think in a different way, in the sense when the child has systemic problem, like especially of connective tissue, I will not put any kind of lens. Probably I will leave them aphakic. But when the child is traumatic, little bit older, they can go for it. If the subluxation is partial, as Dr. Jagatram said, probably one of this can be used. Probably even a glued IOL or with the MNS technique or Cioni ring, depending upon whatever, can be used if the connective tissue is good. These are the two things I would say. But if the subluxation is very mild, probably you can use the Cioni ring or endocapsular ring also in some of the situations. You can get away with this. But if the connective tissue is really good, there is no capsule, probably I'm tempting towards going posterior fixation of IOLs. It's not that I have a huge experience, but I would go with that if possible.
Talking about iris claw?
Yeah.
Iris claw is good. I think
Fixation is scleral fixation, or what was that?
posterior iris fixation. Sorry,
Iris fixation.
I meant iris fixation,
Okay.
not the scleral. Yeah,
Iris fixation. Okay. Not iris sutured. You mean iris claw?
no, iris claw. Yeah.
I think that makes sense.